Hello, my dear viewers. I'm Olga Demchuk, a researcher of the inner world of personality. Today, I have prepared a topic for you: the connection between emotions, depth of thought, and self-realization. Let's work together to understand how all of these are connected. Those who have been watching my channel for a while know that I have both strategic and tactical videos. Today we have a strategic video where we will try to create a holistic picture for a complete understanding of all these processes. I've prepared some drawings for you today to make it easier to absorb the material. If you are taking notes, please take your notebook and sketch this out for yourself. So we have conditionally two modes in which we exist in relation to the outside world. What kind of relationship do we have with it? In the first drawing, we have a large gray circle and a small white one. The gray circle symbolizes our subjectivity. Within our subjectivity, we want everything to go our way. The primary and overarching goal is to ultimately achieve a profound sense of satisfaction for what we deeply desire to genuinely become a tangible reality and to consistently feel completely safe and secure. This is crucial because if there is even a slight degree of dissatisfaction, we will inevitably feel quite unsafe and vulnerable at that precise moment. As you can see, this white circle symbolizes the external world. It seems to be located inside. The individual is in a consumer relationship with the world. In other words, the world is perceived as food or as a burrow. It wants to use it, and this world exists within it. This world goes unnoticed if there is satisfaction and safety. In other words, it is as if we discover the external world. We suddenly encounter it precisely through pain or through pleasure. We perceive it as something that wounds us, as something that does not give us what we desire. The second state in which we find ourselves in relation to the external world is when we are in the world. That is, the world is not inside us, but we are in the world. We have the opportunity to relate ourselves to the external world, but we don't really like this state. Because as you can see, here we are almost in a godlike state where we rule over this world, meaning we are above it. We ourselves decide what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad, how others should behave and how we should behave. And we define this reality the way we want it to be. Here we have a lot of power. But here it's as if we are already subject to logic, truth and objectivity. And here we lose our throne. So this state is our original one, it's where we come from. At first, the child is in the mother's womb, then is born, and the world interests him only as a source of pleasure, of benefits. But in this state, we begin to take a genuine interest in the world, not just from the perspective of how we can benefit from it or get something out of it. It becomes interesting to us in and of itself without reference to ourselves. But in this world, when we step into objectivity and operate with facts, we lose that very crown, that very ability to decide what is right and what is wrong. In a state of subjectivity, we experience a lot of emotions because everything relates to us. Another person who isn't smiling will be perceived from a subjective standpoint as a threat because he is not seen as separate. His lack of a smile in a state of subjectivity is interpreted as a reflection of who we are. In other words, his lack of a smile is definitely about me. Or on the contrary, when a person is overly accommodating and smiling, it is definitely because I am good, I am wonderful, not because that person behaves this way with everyone or perhaps wants something from us. So, as you can see, in this state we relate everything back to ourselves. And in this state, there are simply too many emotions. In this state, our self-esteem is exposed, we have no boundaries, and everything feels personal. This means we will react emotionally to everything. When I discuss subjectivity and objectivity with you, these two modes of building relationships, I don't mean that subjectivity is bad, it isn't going anywhere, and we will inevitably find ourselves in that state. We don't really like being in a state of objectivity because it is precisely in this state that we come to understand our true size. In that case, we are not small, not large, not great, not insignificant, but simply our real size. We possess actual qualities and real capabilities. But in this state, we can endlessly fantasize about how wonderful or how terrible we are. So for now, let's set aside objective considerations completely and instead turn our full attention to our inherent subjectivity. That is to say, within the realm of subjectivity, all individual ideas, all personal thoughts, and all deep-seated emotions are entirely subordinate to our fundamental sense of profound satisfaction and our essential sense of absolute security. That's why we tend to react with a hurt ego, with wounded self-esteem. In other words, the world either loves me or does not love me. Another person either loves me or does not love me. If they love me, it means they will give me what I desire. If they do not, they will not give it to me. This consumerist attitude toward the world, this constant testing of the world, does it love me now? Does it accept me? Is it glad to see me? Is it pleased with me? It is not because we are interested in the world, but because we are interested in ourselves. In other words, in a state of subjectivity, we are completely fixated on ourselves. Now, let us go deeper into wounded pride and the state of the world does not love me. We respond to this with wounded pride. I'm not saying that this is bad. We are simply analyzing the process together. When a person encounters the impossibility of satisfying their needs, a primitive question arises. Am I bad, or is the world bad? Am I bad, or is the world bad? As you can see, there isn't really any thinking involved here. What happens is a search for who is to blame, who is bad, who is right, and who is wrong. There is no analysis, no synthesis, no depth of thought here. Imagine a bottle of soda that has been vigorously shaken, or perhaps left out in the intense heat. This is quite similar to how a person generates these strong emotions. They have a lot of them. They cannot think clearly while being trapped inside themselves. The tension inside begins to build up. It's as if we only have 6 rooms in a house and we keep running from one room to another. In other words, a person may truly feel that they are thinking, but in reality they are simply choosing from these 6 options. So, if I can't get what I want, for example, I might say that the world is bad and wrong, or that another person is bad and wrong. That means I need to attack this person, force them, or punish them with resentment or direct aggression. It doesn't matter. The letter A stands for aggression. In other words, I need to punish them. Or the world is bad and I feel like a humiliated victim. So, I believe that the person is bad or wrong, but I still need something from them, and I start to behave, trying to please them. And the third option is indifference. This is when I become frozen or emotionally numb and say, well, then I don't need anything. I just cancel my need. If I go into the mindset of I'm bad, then I might also direct aggression at myself, punish myself, beat myself up, or be dissatisfied with myself. Or I might slip into a victim state where I cry and feel poor and miserable. Or I might also become numb or frozen, falling into indifference. That is, at this moment, I completely shut off my consciousness and almost erase this fact from my memory. In other words, I try not to think about it. And all subjective thinking is illustrated in this diagram. It is predictable. In certain situations, a person will think in the mode of the world is bad, blaming the world, and these are the 3 possible scenarios. In the second mode, I am bad, and here are these 3 options. Some people fluctuate between them. Some are firmly stuck in I am bad, while others are firmly stuck in the world is bad. But right now, this is a strategic video, and we are interested in the overall picture. So, in moments when I might, even if I blame myself, if I am prone to self-aggression, that doesn't mean there won't also be this sense that the world is bad too. We have looked at the framework of how subjectivity thinks. There is an enormous range of emotions within subjectivity. When we talk about the profound concept of subjectivity, we are truly speaking about the boundless and infinite nature of human imagination, about our own inherent magnificence, our remarkable talent, and our deep intrinsic sense of being uniquely chosen and destined for greatness. And in precisely the same way, we often talk about how our very own demonization, our profound sense of being utterly terrible, also tends inexorably toward infinity. Within subjectivity, absolutely no logic truly applies. There is no analysis and there is no synthesis. Subjectivity relies on emotions. That is, if I feel terrible, then I am terrible. If I feel wonderful, then I am wonderful. If I feel that someone is attacking me when they don't give me what I want, then that person is an aggressor. So you see, here I can't understand that a person doesn't give me what I want for their own reasons. By not giving me what I want, they are definitely an aggressor. If they don't give me acceptance, don't give me love, or even if someone raises their voice at me, I will also perceive that as an attack. I cannot perceive the world as separate from myself. In the same way, in our subjectivity, we fantasize about endless happiness. When you drift away in your imagination, picturing different scenarios, events could unfold this way or that way. And you think ideally it would happen just like this. But in the same way, we also start fantasizing about dramatic developments, about horror. But what if everything turns out to be terrible and bad? And since we have no contact with the outside world, we have nothing to ground ourselves against. We can't understand that in fact we are neither terrible nor wonderful, but specific and real. This is what our real self truly is. We can remain within this real self only when we maintain a genuine connection to reality. That is the moment of acknowledging certain facts about oneself. And it's difficult for a person to acknowledge this, because they say, well, sometimes I'm angry, sometimes I'm kind, so which am I? The answer is both angry and kind. In other words, we think in terms of the unity of opposites. We say that we have both this aspect and that aspect. But for a person locked in subjectivity, this is quite difficult. He has no boundaries, he is limitless, and the same applies to his emotions. For example, the magnitude of a problem for a person will be determined by how much they worry about it. That is, something truly catastrophic might happen, but the person does not take it seriously. They tell him, for instance, if you don't pay your taxes, you'll get a fine. He just says, oh. If you don't renew your passport, there will be some unpleasant consequences. Oh. So you see, if I have no emotional response, if I am not scared, then it's not a problem. But, for example, losing something can cause us panic, horror, and it seems like a tragedy. In other words, we can't truly understand the real scale of a problem, even our own, because we don't rely on the outside world. So when can we actually move into objectivity? I think you understand, and right now you can find this representative within your own psyche when you are in that state. It's when someone, for example, asks you, what would be the best way to act in this situation? Or what do you think? And it seems like it's easier for us to give advice from the outside. We are always more objective when it comes to others because our own subjectivity does not influence us. In other words, you see, when the I appears, it's as if we become a bit irrational and our logical, objective thinking switches off. But when you look at someone else, you can see and understand that their problem isn't actually that big. But if we had the same problem ourselves, we would react in a completely different way. It's as if we forget that we are also subjective. And a person in this state of emotionality is immersed in their own subjectivity. It seems to them that they are experiencing such overwhelming, immense emotions, but in reality, they have no real contact with the outside world. They are not truly experiencing the emotional world, they are not present in it. There are people with wounded pride who are highly emotional. Actually, no, that's not quite right. It's not that there are certain people, all of us have wounded pride to some extent, but some react more emotionally while others less so. We simply can't help but react when things don't go the way we want. But when we get caught up in that state, the outside world switches off. We can no longer objectively understand what someone is saying or what is happening. We are already swept up by the whirlwind and it spins us around. And in that moment, we have no emotional connection with the world at all. So we shouldn't confuse emotional connection with the world, with another person truly experiencing that connection, with this whirlwind, this tornado of subjectivity when we find ourselves running through those 6 rooms. Remember the humiliated victim or aggression or indifference. When we learn to distinguish between these things, we gain the ability to analyze objectively. That means we can analyze ourselves in the same way we analyze our acquaintances. We see the true scale of the problem. And the depth of our thinking depends on this as well. In other words, if I don't separate my own subjectivity, if I don't step out of those 6 rooms depicted in the illustration, the world doesn't love me, if I don't step out, then there is no depth of thinking at all. Thinking is the analysis of facts, it is analysis. It's not just analysis, but also synthesis. A final conclusion. I am unable to think. I react emotionally to everything. And for example, if I work as a manager, then a mistake made by a subordinate will not be analyzed objectively in terms of how it affects future processes, but rather its significance will be measured by the intensity of my emotions. In other words, in subjectivity, emotions rule the game. The extent to which I feel this problem is the extent to which it exists. As soon as I step out of subjectivity, I see that everything here is solvable. But because I am caught in an internal whirlwind, I can't even use the intellectual potential that I have. When we move into subjectivity, when we have the ability to think, then, I mean objectivity. With objectivity, we gain both a future and a past. In other words, we gain a sense of time. When we fall into subjectivity, we lose the ability to understand what time is. I think you've noticed yourself that when you get caught in an emotional storm, it's as if someone has stopped the clock. You can lose track of time. You don't know how much time has passed. But when we are in objectivity, we definitely have a connection with time. So if we lose track of time, it means we've already slipped somewhere. In objectivity, we have the ability to operate with facts, and we begin to understand how the future might unfold. After all, our imagining of how terrible things could be is in reality just imagination. And in reality, those who are able to think objectively can quite accurately predict whether this business plan will work or not, whether this project will attract participants or not. Am I developing my talents right now, or am I simply indulging my own vanity? And so on and so forth. In other words, our ability to realize ourselves directly depends on our connection with the outside world, on our capacity to think, and on our ability to step outside of our own subjectivity. While we remain locked inside ourselves, there are a lot of emotions, but no real contact with the world of sensations, no ability to look into the future, and no way to envision our own future either, because we don't understand who we are, where we should go, or what we should do. How can we develop our thinking? There are many of my videos about how to step out of subjectivity, how to understand it, and how to develop your thinking. And there's my book. You're welcome to order my first book, False Self, Real Self. Another book is already written. It isn't available in English yet, but we're working on it. So stay connected with our team. Join us and let's develop our thinking together. Or watch the videos, take notes, and learn to think for yourself. The moment you ask me for advice on what to do, you are already turning off your own thinking. You want to receive something ready-made, and once again, your thinking will not develop. You won't have the opportunity to stand on your own 2 feet. When you learn to understand things on your own, to think independently, you give yourself a chance to move from subjectivity to objectivity, and as a result, to realize your potential. These ideas are not just theory. They're something to return to in everyday life. Bit by bit, they start shaping real change. Feel free to like the video, subscribe, and support the channel. And I would like to ask you to describe in the comments or in your notes what you are like in subjectivity and what you are like in objectivity. The video is limited in time. I don't have time to say everything. And as we've already discussed, we become teachers for one another. Some people will read your comments. This will help them explore their own subjectivity and discover many aspects. And when you read someone else's comment, you will also learn something. So please write, and see you soon.